A man came to the Prophet ﷺ in Medina. His name was Tamim Dhari. He was Christian, he converted to Islam, became a Muslim. And he communicated to the Prophet ﷺ some information about an event which took place. When we study the event critically, we come to the conclusion this could not have been an actual event, it had to be a vision. He said, he spoke about his experience to the Prophet ﷺ. Hadith is in Sahih Muslim, and the Prophet said to the people, sit down in the masjid. I have something to say to you. Tamim Dhari came to me and told me something about Dajjal which confirms what I've been saying to you. And now we have the event from the lips of the Prophet ﷺ.
Tamim Dhari and some 30 or 40 of his companions went on board a ship. And then the storms came and blew the ship for a whole month before they arrived at an island. And when they got on shore, they got off the ship and they went on shore, they were confronted by a very hairy creature. Plenty hair, so much hair you could hardly tell which side is head and which side is tail. And then this creature spoke and said, I am Jassasa. Jassasa, spy. Surah Al-Hujurat, وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا, do not spy. So this is an island with a lot of people who excel in spying. And then Jassasa pointed to a monastery. There's someone waiting to see you there. So they rushed to the monastery. And there they found this young man, powerfully built, with curly hair, but there's no description about his eyes. His hands were chained to his neck, his feet were chained. And this man began to question Tamim Dhari and his companions. A number of very interesting questions. And then he said, I am Dajjal. I am the Antichrist. And when I am released, so up to this moment he's not as yet released, and when I am released, thank you, I will enter every town and every city, including Tunapuna. But I will not be allowed to enter into Mecca and Medina because the angels will bar me. And so now we know, up to this moment in time, the Antichrist is not as yet released. But he is on an island, which is about 1 month's journey away from the Arab world, by sea. An island which has excellence in spying. And so now we know that when the message came from the Messenger of Allah that Dajjal has been released, we know that it is in this island that he is going to be released. And it is from this island that he will launch his mission to impersonate the Messiah and to eventually rule the world from Jerusalem. Question: Which island is it? Before we attempt to answer the question, let us turn to another hadith, another statement of the Prophet ﷺ, which is of crucial importance. It is also in Sahih Muslim. He said that when the Antichrist is released, he will live on earth for 40 days. 40 days. Yawmun kasana. One day like a year. Yawmun kashahr. One day like a month. Yawmun kajum'a. One day like a week. Wasairu ayyamihi ka ayyamikum. And all his days, implying all the rest of his days, would be like your days. When his day, now listen carefully, when his day is like our day, he would be in our dimension of time. And when he is in our dimension of time, then we can see him. At that time, of course, he would be, said the Prophet ﷺ, a Jew, a young man, powerfully built, with curly hair. Where would he be at that time? Of course, he would be in Jerusalem, ruling the world from Jerusalem, the way the world is now ruled from Washington. But where would he be when he's released on earth? In a day which would be like a year. And where would he be on earth in a day which is like a month? And where would he be on earth in a day which is like a week? Do we have answers for that? Praise be to Allah, who allowed this servant Imran to study international relations, international politics, international economics. The answer, of course, is that when he is released on earth, he would be on that island. And from that island, he will launch his mission to liberate the Holy Land, to bring the Jews back to the Holy Land, to reclaim it as their own, to restore a state of Israel in the Holy Land, and get the Jews to believe that this is the holy Israel of David and of Solomon, alayhim salam, and to cause that state of Israel to become the ruling state in the world. Which island is it?
And in the Bible, the mark of Dajjal is 666, meaning 600 and then 60 and then 6. And our Prophet says, a day like a year, that's the 600, a day like a month, that's the 60, a day like a week, that's the 6. It's the same thing, using different languages. Now then, which island is it? Because when he is released, it is from that island that he will commence his mission to eventually rule the world from Jerusalem.
In November of 1917, the British government did something which was incredibly strange and mysterious. A Britain which is now the prince of the secular world. The secular world takes religion out of politics. And Britain is the prince of the secular world. Britain issues a declaration known as the Balfour Declaration in November 1917 that it is the intention of His Majesty's government to work for the establishment of a Jewish national home in the Holy Land. Did you hear that? The only thing stranger than that ever occurred in history was the day that the cow jumped over the moon. Why would a secular state, which leads the world of secular states, declare its intention to work for the establishment of a Jewish national home, meaning a Jewish state, in the Holy Land? Two months later, this was October 1917, in December 1917, it is a British army led by General Allenby which defeats the Ottoman Islamic army and liberates the Holy Land. And when Allenby entered into Jerusalem, the British general declared, "Today, the Crusades are over." Oh, but the Crusades were supposed to have been Christian wars. And you are now a secular state. You're not a Christian state, you're a secular state. How come a secular Britain is continuing a crusade started by the Pope 1,000 years before? That's strange. That is incredibly strange. Between 1918 and 1948, it is the island of Britain which ruled over the Holy Land on a mandate conferred by the League of Nations. And during that period of time, with tremendous deception, while pretending to keep the Jews out, Britain opened the doors for the Jews of Europe to enter into the Holy Land and to reclaim it as their own. In between came the interlude of Adolf Hitler, which speeded up the movement of the Jews from Europe to the Holy Land. In 1948, Britain did something strangest of all. Britain is a state with a tremendous commitment to the rule of law. And so every time Britain decolonized, there was always an insistence of a legal transfer of power. And then you had the flags going up at midnight, and the national anthem and this constitution and so on. A legal transfer of power. It happened in Trinidad as well. But in 1948, when Britain left the Holy Land, she left like a thief in the dark. For the first time, for the only time in British history, there was no legal transfer of power from Britain to the successor state. In 1948, Britain acted as a midwife for the baby to be born. The European Jewish state of Israel. And so my answer is that that island of Tamim Dhari is Britain.
A very interesting event now takes place in Medina, either shortly before or shortly after the incident of the dream, and Wailul lil Arab, indicating that Gog and Magog are now released. What is it? The Prophet ﷺ is now speaking a lot about Dajjal. He never spoke on this subject in Mecca. He never spoke on this subject for 17 months in Medina. But now, after the change in Qibla, for the first time he's talking about the subject of Dajjal. All the ahadith on Dajjal are all from Medina, post change of Qibla. Having spoken a lot about Dajjal, explaining to us a lot of things about Dajjal, he now says that he suspects a Jewish boy to be Dajjal, Ibn Sayyad. So he takes Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu with him, and he goes to question the boy. But Ibn Sayyad is rather impertinent in his replies. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu is furious. He says, "O Messenger of Allah, give me permission, I'll cut off his head." The Prophet said, "No, Umar. If he is Dajjal, you cannot kill him. And if he is not Dajjal, it would be sinful to kill him." Go search the hadith, you'll find it in my book downstairs. If he is Dajjal, you cannot kill him, indicates the possibility exists that he can be Dajjal. Are you with me? Don't go away, huh? If the possibility exists that he can be Dajjal, then that is only possible if Dajjal has been released. And so the release of Dajjal also takes place in the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Because Dajjal is released, and Gog and Magog are released, Qiyamah has now started in the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And this is why he said, "Ana wal qiyamah kahatain." I and Qiyamah are like these two fingers. Now you understand the hadith.
That a slave woman will give birth to her mistress. For this, we have to go again to the hadith, in which Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam prophesied about Akhirul Zaman, that women would dress like men. Would we ever live to see a woman in a jacket? Would we ever live to see a woman in blue jeans? Would we ever live to see a woman with a tie? Huh? Wake up. It's already here. It's already here. women are already dressing like men, and when they do dress like men, either they don't know of what the Prophet said, or they don't care. They don't care. No. Why? Because they're brainwashed. They're following Dajjal, and the only way you can stop them from following Dajjal is getting a piece of rope and tying them up. Why would Dajjal take women and get them to dress like men? Why? The answer is that Dajjal wants to challenge what religion and society has constantly proclaimed for thousands of years, that men and women are functionally different. Dajjal wants to say that all the prophets of Allah were wrong, and all the religions were wrong, and men, those brutes, were wrong. And we, modern Western civilization, have come to liberate women by saying to them, there is no functional difference between men and women. And so anything that a man does, a woman must have the freedom to do it. It sounds real nice when you are brainwashed. And so now she puts on the working woman's clothes, and she goes to work and faces the morning traffic like everybody else. Don't be angry with me. Don't be angry with me. I have a job to do. And she works all day like men do. And she comes home in the evening with her briefcase like men do. And she has now assumed the functional role of men in society. So she's lost her femininity. But that's not all. She's also losing her fertility. She can't have babies. When you're trying to play being a man, something happens to your body. Allah wants that the woman should have her babies when she is young, when the body is young, and the body is youngest of all and best equipped of all to make babies after she has reached the age of puberty. That is the best time. You got to have peanuts in your head to tell me that a woman is better equipped to have a baby at 25 than at 15. I don't have peanuts in my head, excuse me. And all through history, women had their babies when they were 14 and 15 and 16 until Dajjal took over. And now they're having their babies at 25 and 26 and 27. But then some of them can't have babies because the womb refuses to deliver a baby. And this is a problem, because if I don't have a baby for him, he will take another woman. What to do? So you go to a place called a clinic, fertility clinic, and they're very expensive. We're talking about a slave woman giving birth to her mistress, and you pay a large sum of money to become pregnant. And all that you try, but nothing works. Nothing works. But remember, you're earning a big income, you got a career, you got a BMW in the yard there. You're a modern woman, but you can't have a baby. I feel sorry for you, sister, I'm not laughing at you. So now guess what you do? You go to Indonesia, knock, knock, knock. Are you there? So the slave woman comes out. And you make a contract with her. If you do it in New York with an American woman, that you take her to the clinic and your husband's sperm is injected into her egg, so she can become pregnant with your husband's baby, it's going to cost you 70,000 US. You don't have that kind of money. So you travel to Jakarta or to Bangladesh, and you get the slave woman, knock, 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 and you make a contract with her, and you only pay 7,000. So she goes to the clinic, and the sperm is injected into the egg, and she becomes pregnant. MashaAllah. She got a first-class baby there inside of her. She's a slave woman. But for 9 months she got to drink mineral water. That baby should not get this polluted water. And for 9 months, no GM food. Only the food that's served in 5-star restaurants. Got a first-class baby there. And then the baby is born. And the mother is paid. And the baby goes first class, while the mother remains a slave. But this does not explain all of it. It is only when a baby girl is born that the baby girl will rule over the mother. If a baby boy is born, the baby boy will not rule over the mother. So this explanation is not adequate. The Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, one more hadith, and again connected with Dajjal. He said the time will come when one man would have to maintain how many women? How many? How many? 50. What is 50 in Bahasa? Nimbu. Nimru. Lima biru. One man would have to maintain 50 women. Now listen. Don't go back home and misquote this hadith to your wife. He didn't say one man would have to marry 50 women. So when you go back home and report this hadith to your wife, make sure you report it properly. One man would have to maintain 50 women. What this hadith indicates is that there is going to be a calamitous decline in the birth of baby boys. So great will be the decline that hardly any baby boys are going to be born tomorrow. Why? We held an international Islamic retreat in Trinidad a year and a half ago, and then we held a second one in Cape Town in March, and now we're holding the third one here in Malaysia, inshallah, next year. And the retreat was meant to teach the reality of the world today using the Quran and Hadith. And in that Hadith, in that retreat, a medical doctor stood up and explained to us. He said that the sperm of the male has male chromosomes and female chromosomes. And when the male chromosome fertilizes the egg, then a baby boy is born. But if a male chromosome fails to fertilize the egg, then the default would be a baby girl. Aristotle said the same thing 4,000 years ago, but he said it in a clumsy way. He said in his Nicomachean Ethics that when nature fails to produce a boy, a girl is born. The doctor explained that the radiation that comes from cellular phones and from laptop computers, and notice where the laptop computer is placed, that this radiation damages sperm production, making the chromosome weaker and weaker, until eventually the male chromosome will be too weak to fertilize the egg. 10 years ago when I came to KL, nobody had a cell phone. Nobody. And now every Indonesian male has a cell phone. It is proliferating. Maybe that the genetically modified food also has a role to play. Maybe that the pollution of the environment, the atmosphere, has a role to play. But the fact is that there is a tomorrow which is coming when very few baby boys are going to be born. If you have a political system in which one man and one woman has one vote, then the majority will rule. Allah did not create women to rule. No, He did not. But Dajjal says, I'm going to make them rule. So Dajjal has given you the cellular phone. It's very handy. Oh yes, but this is the price you pay. And tomorrow, when there are very few men and large numbers of women, guess who's going to be your Prime Minister? And all the ministers in your government. This is not to say that women do not have the intellectual acumen to be scholars and to be administrators. This is not to be in any way insulting or demeaning women. No. Your mother was a woman, and your mother was the best teacher you ever had in your life. How can you speak of women as being inferior to men intellectually? Are you crazy? No. How can you speak of women being morally and spiritually inferior to men? Are you mad? Did the Messenger of Allah not say that all of mankind will stand before Allah on Judgment Day, men as well as women, as equal in His sight as are the teeth of a comb? Did He not say that? But Allah did not create women to rule. No. Allah gave them complementary roles. The night has to do the work of the night, and the day has to do the work of the day. And so they complement each other. They're like two halves that come together to make a whole. But Dajjal says, no. Dajjal says, I'm going to put an equal sign between the male and the female. And he did it, and they swallowed it. The brainwashed followers of Dajjal. And so now, it is only when a baby girl is born that she rules. And if a baby boy is born, he does not rule.